And welcome to the GC channel, to our virtual audience around the world. This is a channel especially for general counsels and in-house legal teams by general counsels. We're going to be covering some of the most trendy topics that are keeping you up at night, and we really hope that you'll find the next few minutes insightful and useful information. Talk to you very soon. And so if we now were to wear the hat of the in-house, legal department, the gatekeepers of the legal team to any kind of company, whether it's a listed company or a privately held company, what would you say? How can you articulate right now the most salient questions in their minds? What is it that they want to know? What do they need to know? And if you can articulate those questions, then let's see how we can address them. I mean, at the end of the day, the GC channel is exactly for GCs by GCs. So what in this realm of data privacy and in the restrictions during COVID, what would you say are the top three questions in their minds that are keeping them up at night?
Well, I think one of the questions has to be around a phrase that you were referring to a moment ago, the new normal. How much of the adaptations to, for example, the trend toward cloud computing and remote working, and in a way the breaks that the regulators are giving to companies, recognizing that they're dealing with an emergency situation. For example, a lot of the strict regulations around remote working, whether it's traditional ways of regulating wages and hours, overtime, occupational health and safety restrictions in the workplace, controls on privacy and security that applied to enterprises that are working with the traditional way with workers in plants and offices. Some of those have been relaxed with the recognition that workers were working remotely, and companies were having to use cloud-based services and software as a service intensely during the COVID emergency. How much of that is becoming the new normal and will reflect ongoing changes in labor relations, ways of working, ways of handling information, and will have to be reflected in changed policies, procedures, and even regulations and liability rules. And companies will have to adjust to that in their vendor relations, in their human resources policies. Some of that is already going on now in terms of contracting and policy and even rulemaking. And I think General Counsel will have to be nimble. And some companies will be more nimble than others in adjusting to those things. There are already changes in terms of getting workforce back to work. Are they all going to be coming back to work in expensive downtown or office space or office park lease space, or will more adaptations be made for people working remotely, for example? That's going to have impact on in many fields, and not just in data privacy and data security, but it certainly affects those as well. So those are trends that General Counsel have to be watching and adapting to, and some companies will, no doubt adapt better than others to them.
Well, I have to tell you, even as I'm sitting here and I'm listening, I'm thinking this sounds pretty daunting in terms of what is required. It sounds like companies are going to have to, go through a transformation and get these procedures in place, sort of similar to what happened when GDPR was being implemented, and people stayed up all night, weeks and days before the implementation to avoid the fines and the irregularities that came from being non-compliant. But I mean, surely, if we are true to the cause, it sounds that even though it sounds very complex and there are things that have to be done, there's certainly some baby steps that can be taken now without too much drama that in-house counsel will be very happy to learn through the GC channel. What are some of the things that we can tell our viewers that can be done without having to spend a lot of their budget to be more compliant and more in line with what is expected as we go forward during the end of the pandemic, hopefully?
Well, for example, many companies are right now updating their employee handbooks, employee policies, human resources policies to adapt longer term to the issues involving having a larger proportion of their workforce and a broader range of employees and independent contractors working on a remote basis and using their own devices outside the company firewall, handling the work of the company. So it might have only been certain classes of employees that were doing that, outside sales people and people doing software coding on an independent contractor basis. Now it's a very large portion of the workforce that's working outside the firewall and working from home much of the time, and often for funny reasons. I mean, even for example, after lockdowns are lifted, there's still, for example, social distancing requirements. We have clients who have said, well, great, I can bring employees back to the office tower downtown, but I can only get 6 of them on the elevator car at a time. And I can't get 2,500 employees up the tower to all the floors in the building in a reasonable amount of time. So I'm still only letting 1/3 of them back into the office tower. And you know what? I don't know if I need all that lease space anymore. It's expensive. So I've decided I'm still going to have maybe a quarter of my workforce working from home for the indefinite future. And that means they're working on their smartphones and their laptops at home instead of the company workstations within the firewall like I used to. Now I'm buying VPN connections for them, and I need whole new policies for how I handle and a lot of new software for handling my office workers that used to be working in downtown space and are now working for their homes. And by the way, since they're working from their homes anyway, they decided they'd rather live out in the countryside somewhere. And so I need whole different rules for dealing with employees who are not commuting, they're not getting office lunches, they need different perks and benefits. I need to rework my human resources policies and my cybersecurity policies and my bring your own device policies. I need to be able to look at the data that they have of mine that's on their devices. And so I need to put new policies and procedures in place. And I need some new software applications, some new security rules and procedures. And I need to make sure those all work within the employment regulations and insurance rules that apply, and workers' compensation rules and occupational health and safety rules that apply in my jurisdiction. Do I have to go out and inspect the safety of their home office? They have all kinds of funny requirements that apply, but I have to do it now because while my my jurisdiction gives me a break during the COVID emergency, that's not going to last. And by next year, while I want these new arrangements to be permanent, I need to start making this work for the long term. And if I'm in Germany, I need to make it work with the labor union and the Works Council. And if I have problems, I'm going to need to take that up with the labor tribunal. So there's a lot to start organizing, but I'll start doing it with the most immediate concerns with the portions of the labor force that I need to make this the new normal for. So I start talking with my labor lawyers, with my insurance lawyers, with my data privacy lawyers, and start solving those problems right now.
That that sounds very pragmatic, but I'm sure that for our audience right now, they're scratching their head thinking, I'm already underwater as it is with my day job, and now I need to think about being compliant in the new trends of working, as you said, remotely. it occurred to me when you were talking about social distancing that when some of these employers are saying, well, I'm going to bring my entire force back, but social distancing is going to remain a requirement. I don't know that building a much bigger elevator could be an option where you can have a lot of people stand with distancing, but the cost of building those
rebuild.
would make it inappropriate. But
Yeah.
what I was thinking, Scott, is as you know, First Law is always on the cutting edge of the service that we're trying to provide all of our clients. And one of the things that we're currently doing is doing a survey of the 5 to 10 most burning points right now on their agenda. And we've asked them to talk to their in-house teams, and we're going to receive this populated questionnaire. And on the next interview that we'll have with you and other members of the executive team, we're going to be putting forward those questions, and we're going to ask you all to weigh in and comment and provide some real guidance to the clients whose legal departments right now feel completely overwhelmed with all the changes, both in complying with data privacy and security and cyber security, but also, as you said, in the new practicalities that we don't think about, like, what about what are the concerns if nobody ever comes back to the building? What will that look like? What is going to be my legal department? And I have everybody scattered in the new challenges, like you said, where people are going to say, well, if I can work from home, why don't I work from home out of Amsterdam? Or why don't I travel over to another part of the world? So anyway, these interviews are intended to be short. They're intended to be concise and valuable to our audience. So we want to thank Scott Blackmer for taking the time to make us think and take some good notes of what has been said. We hope that you found it valuable, insightful, and that this will create a conversation in your legal departments and with your corporate teams. And we look forward to our next interview, where we will have other members of FLI's executive team, but also we will have clients that will dial in at different times of the presentations to ask direct questions to our members of the panel. So with that in mind, we'd like to thank you wherever you are in the world. Stay safe, and we will be talking to you very shortly. From First Law Internationals in Brussels, we wish you a very good day. So we'd like to thank you for your attention in the last few minutes. We hope that you found this GC channel broadcast insightful and useful. And we look forward to having your comments. To make sure that you subscribe and you leave your questions with us. And we promise that we'll get back to you very quick.